Na 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 moonlight, na 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 in the sky, na 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 you say, na 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 popcorn, na 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 moonlight, na 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 in the sky, na 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 you say, na 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 popcorn.
What's up, guys? Fantasy Aristotle back again with our Hard Knocks review of episode 3. So let's just hop right into this. Today was a big day for Hard Knocks. First day of pads was covered on this episode. And if you've ever played football, you know how big the first day of pads is. It is an amazing day, and it's also a day where you can see who's really into play and who's kind of just like, meh, my mom made me play, especially in Little League. So the first day of pads always consists of 1,700 different hitting drills, from Oklahoma to the now banned King of the Ring, where you'd have one guy in the middle and a ring around them of players, and a coach just sending a random player at that player in the middle. So that's gone, but then you still have your Oklahoma drills. You also have your one-on-one hitting drills, a drill that we all did growing up. So the first day of pads is such a huge day. It's nice that they get to see that in the pros. It's the same thing where the players are just as excited to get those pads on as you were when you were a little kid. So that's always nice to see. You also see that spark kind of turn on in players once pads go on, because usually if you just have your helmet on, or if you just have, just your shells, your walk-on, or your warm-up with your shirts and jerseys and stuff, those days are always a bit weird. They bring a weird energy because you're on the field, but you're not really on the field. So it's nice to see that all the way along, especially up in the pros where it's the same. Also on the episode that kind of deals with both teams is SoFi Stadium got its big shining light displayed on the episode. Unfortunately, it was just on the Rams side. It wasn't on the Chargers side, and we're probably not going to see the Chargers in SoFi just because they did cancel their scrimmage that would have been on Thursday of the week for episode 4. And they canceled it due to protests in the NFL with the racial discrepancies in the world and everything like that. We're not going to really get into that on this episode. More than likely, we'll get onto it next episode. However, SoFi Stadium, they did show it off, and I cannot wait to actually get to go in this thing. It looks amazing. They showed off the suites on social media. They also showed off kind of, what the surrounding area of the field is going to look like on this Hard Knocks episode. So I cannot wait to buy, those nosebleed section seats, because they're probably going to be expensive as can be, just like it is in Jerry World, where I went for Thanksgiving when the Chargers played them, and I paid $500 for 4 tickets up at the nosebleeds. They were the cheapest tickets. It was ridiculous, but I got to see the Chargers whoop up on the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, so you always got to love that. So let's go ahead and get into the Rams side. This was a Chargers-centric episode, which is with their theme of switching off back and forth. So next week's probably going to be more Ram-centric, and episode 5 probably encompass all of the teams evenly, because it is going to be the last week for cuts. So in this episode, like I said, the first day of pads, so you've seen a little bit of competition there. We also dove heavily into their scrimmage at SoFi Stadium. 2 things that right off the bat are the Rams blue jerseys weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, but I'm still not a fan of that ombre color, that yellow into white. Also on the Falcons, the black into red, or the red into black, I forget right off the top of my head. So I'm not a real fan of that, but the jerseys do look pretty nice. And their bone jerseys, I was really harsh on them at the start when they first came out, but seeing them actually in person, they don't look too bad. There are worse jerseys in the league. The Broncos had those candy wrapper jerseys way back in the day. The Eagles had that terrible, canary yellow and light blue combination. So there are some bad jersey combinations. And that bone one is about average, I would say. I thought it was going to be really bad when they first saw it. Not a fan of that. But we also dove into a little bit of more of the Clay Johnston linebacker that we got from last episode, and they showed his backstory, which was kind of cool because his dad was a strength coach for the NFL for the last 20 years, but was on the Favre Green Bay Packers and had a really good bond with Brett Favre. So Brett Favre made an appearance talking to Clay on this episode, and you heard it here first. Brett Favre is coming out of retirement. You remember that, is he, or is it he way back a couple years, maybe 5-10 years ago, whenever it was. But Favre is officially coming back to the NFL, and he's probably going to take Jared Goff's job and throw 5,000 touchdowns and 5,000 interceptions, because that's who Favre was. Johnston, I don't think this guy's going to make the team, but I mean, with his passion and everything, he could probably make a special teams player or even be on those 16-person practice squad for each team with the expanded practice squad. Dante Dion also got some light on this episode. And, man, I'm just – the more they show him, the more I'm just like, man, this guy's annoying. Let's just get rid of him. Show some actual players, maybe Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, more Jalen Ramsey, maybe some of the other defensive players or some of the offensive players, but they seem to be focusing on Clay Johnston and Dante Dion on the Rams side. But you can't cover the Rams without showing how beastly Aaron Donald is. And again, in this episode, they just showed and told you how good Aaron Donald is. He's the best defensive player I have ever seen, and he just wrecks the game in every way possible. On their scrimmage, he had probably 16 sacks, so I can't really tell if the Rams' offensive line sucks or Aaron Donald is just that good. And lastly, before we move on to the Chargers side, Sean McVay, every week I see this, just reminds me more and more of John Gruden. So I think he's going to be a long-lost son of John Gruden. They need to do a DNA test or something like that, because he sounds just like him in his cadence. Sometimes the vocal features also mimic that of Gruden. So that's probably why ESPN was looking at him for the Monday Night Replacement crew. And, I mean, if it's true, it's a pretty seamless transition from Gruden to McVay, because they sound so similar. Their passion for the game is the exact same, which I think McVay is going to be here for a long time to stay in the coaching because of his knowledge and wealth of the playbook, the rule book, everything like that. So now we'll go on to the Chargers side. The big thing that they showed on this episode was the blocking receivers. They showed it probably three times that they mentioned the receivers blocking. And if you don't know football, blocking receivers are a huge part of football. Yes, receivers catch the ball, and that's what they get praised for, but you actually get paid for blocking. Look at Larry Fitzgerald. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL and in NFL's history, but he's also one of the best blocking receivers. Hines Ward, again, really good receiver, excellent blocker. So if you block well in the league, you'll stay in the league. So they just harped on that because blocking as a receiver, which I used to play, is a huge part of the game. And in fact, you're actually blocking more than you're catching passes. You might catch 10 passes per game, but you're going to be blocking on 20 to 30 plays. So blocking is a huge part of the game, and they just harped on that. So it's nice to see the behind the scenes and the coaches actually getting really fired up about the blocking receivers. And then we went from the blocking receivers right into a seamless transition to Keenan Allen versus Chris Harris. So as a Chargers fan and as a fantasy owner, Keenan Allen, when he plays the Broncos, was always a frustrating move. He could have these boom games where he has 7 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown, or against Chris Harris, he would have 3 catches for 30 yards, which is, as a fantasy owner, very annoying, which is why I'm so glad that Chris Harris is now on the team. And iron sharpens iron, so they're just going to get even better because you're going up against one of the best DBs and one of the best route running receivers. Yes, Keenan Allen is not one of the best statistical receivers because he's not going to put up the big numbers. He is going to get you right around 100 catches, right around 1,000 yards. His touchdown numbers are not going to be that great. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Keenan Allen all got into it a little earlier this year, but Keenan Allen is still one of the best receivers in the league, so they're just going to get each other better and better. They kind of showed a montage of their game footage, and they kind of roasted Philip Rivers for showing him throwing about 5 interceptions to Chris Harris. And they were talking crap back and forth with the receivers coach right there, and then Keenan Allen did say that it would have been funner with Philip Rivers being here, and then actually said that it was Philip Rivers' fault for all of their past battles, because if you haven't heard Philip Rivers mic'd up, you need to stop this video right now, go find a mic'd up video of Philip Rivers, and then come back, and you will thank me later. This man is gold.
First play you called out right today, 5-5. It's the first one you've called right. You. One of them you got right went for like 50.
So now that you're back, hopefully from watching that video, we're going to go into the Tyrod Taylor segment that they had on the show. So Tyrod Taylor gets a bad rap. Yes, he is, how would you put it? He's safe with the ball. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. And a lot of people are saying that he's just a bridge quarterback. Yes, he's a bridge quarterback, but he's actually a quarterback that can win you games. He took Buffalo to the playoffs after 17 years drought. He also was on the Cleveland Browns, where he had them in the 3 games that he played. He had them right there to win. They would have won those 3 games if it was not for a missed kick. So I do think that he can go a long way. This is the best talent he's had around him as a starting quarterback. So that's a huge plus. Yes, he's going to be a bridge quarterback because Justin Herbert is the future, but I do feel like they can win with him now, which is why you're seeing them bringing on players on the defense to help out that defense to make it even easier for Tyrod to win. And then lastly, before we end the episode, was the Melvin Ingram segment that they posted out. So first off, Melvin Ingram is going to be my pick for the best rapper in the NFL. He's a lot better than Lev Bell. This man's music is pretty good. It's not mainstream level good. It's not going to be that popular, but he's a very good rapper. And then lastly, they touched on his contract dispute that he had with the Chargers. They painted it in a light as if he wanted a contract extension and was unhappy with his contract. But when you actually read all the reports, he wasn't necessarily seeking a contract extension just because the $14 million he had on his contract was not guaranteed for this year. He said that with all the uncertainty with coronavirus of this year, he just wanted that $14 million guaranteed, so he would have the money if the season got canceled, games weren't played, they had to amend the season, something like that. That $14 million would start to reduce. So he just wanted that $14 million guaranteed. The team showed good faith by allowing the contract to be fully guaranteed, and he signed that amendment and came back onto the field. So that shows good faith for this offseason when he becomes a free agent and the contract negotiations start up again. So a lot of people I heard were saying just trade him, get rid of him. We don't need him, but we do need him. He's an integral part of the defense. He's also a great locker room guy, which in the NFL is a huge thing. If you always hear locker room cancer, he's bad locker room guy, bad character. So if you get rid of a locker room guy, you actually lose the locker room, and then the team goes to hell. So I'm glad that they were able to amend his contract to get it fully guaranteed for this year, and hopefully we can re-sign him going into the next year for another 4 or 3 years, whatever it is. But that was the episode. There wasn't really much there in terms of storylines, no real big news. The big news is going to come next week when the Jacob Blake information all hits the episode, because all these teams are starting to cancel practice, postpone practice, stuff like that. So that episode is going to be real heavy in the political aspect, I believe. So we will see about that. Oh, before we do get out of here, like I said, the 2 teams switching from blue and yellow to blue and yellow was going to be a hassle, because when I was watching this episode, my girlfriend was watching it with me, and she goes, wait a second, I thought you said the Chargers were on here. I thought they said that these were the Rams. So she wasn't really watching, and she didn't know that there was actually 2 teams. She was very confused about the switching back and forth in the Rams and the Chargers. So like I said, that was going to be a huge thing for people who didn't necessarily know the NFL very well. And guess what? It happened. So we will be back for episode 4. We'll see what actually happens, because this news week was pretty big for the NFL. So we'll see what they cover on Hard Knocks and what they don't cover. But we will go from there. So until then, we'll see you next time. Go check out all of our other videos that we have. C-Money's doing a lot of reacts right now. Juju and Andre on the main show, and then me on the fantasy show. I'm actually going to be having Juju come on with me for a last episode before the season, where we just have all these big news and we break down a couple players here and there. So we will see you next time. Until then, guys, have fun.